Okay. So listen, I am excited that you all are here. And so we are live. I'm Pastor Kurt James, and I want to invite you to join us May 8th. That's right, it's Mother's Day, and we're honoring. Okay, family, go ahead on tag share. Let's get everybody in, and let's get ready for an amazing conversation today. And we are excited about it. Go ahead on the tag and share. Listen, this conversation today is going to be so informative. It's going to be so inspirational. And it's really going to be life-changing. So let's tag, let's share, let's get everybody into what I know is going to be life-changing. Two very special people in the studio with us today who are changing lives, who are saving lives, who are empowering lives. And it's amazing that I know Rachel don't like cop, and I know Courtney don't like counselor, but we got CNC sitting in the building. Hey, but law enforcement, therapists working together, and we're excited about it. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Juan, how are you? Listen, go ahead on the tag and share. Lisa, this is going to be an amazing conversation, and it's going to be amazing because we've got some amazing guests in the studio with us. Let's get ready to. Okay. Let's go ahead on tag and share. Let's get everybody in. We're about to go live on air. So I need you to get everybody in today for Wake Up Wednesday right here. Want to say good afternoon and once again, welcome to Wake Up Wednesday. That's right. It's the show that gets you woke. Oh, did I say woke? Yeah, it's the show that wakes you up to everything that's going on in and around our city, our state, and even our nation. But you know, today is a very special day. It's the beginning of what I declared on last evening, Women's Week, because we're moving into Mother's Day, and I'm excited about the guests. But let's talk just a few minutes before we get started about some of the things that are going on in and around our city. It's Teachers Appreciation Week all over the county. And for those of you parents, those of you friends, why don't you reach out to those who are in the classroom just to let them know how appreciative you are to them for the service that they provide. Because why? It's our teachers that are at the base of educating those who are leading our nation. Some president had to sit in the classroom. Would you believe that? Amen. And even though the drug dealer is in prison, he had to sit in the classroom. Guess what? Maybe he wasn't paying attention. But however, teachers are valuable. And I want you to take time to appreciate them. I understand pancake breakfast has been flying all over school campuses. The Rotary Club has been over at Hartsfield. They've been over at Raleigh, and I understand they're going to be at Barnes come Monday in efforts of just showing appreciation. So make sure that you reach out to a teacher. As a matter of fact, since we're talking about school, I understand that Beatty, who's been serving on our school board for well over 10 years, has decided that because of health reasons, she will let June be the last month of her fighting the good fight of faith when it comes to issues concerning our schools, concerning our school boards. And as you know, there's so much going on now with our school system, and they're figuring out ways to try to figure out how do we make sure that our tenured principals, our administrators, how they have pay raises. So Superintendent he has to put on his gloves to really, really figure out how to fight out of what Nail County School has found themselves in. Hey, but listen, we're going to make sure that as a community, we rally behind the leadership and rally behind to support those who are serving to make sure that our school system is up to par doing what needs to happen. Also, don't forget now, we're closing in on the Soul of Southside. That's right, it's the second annual, and it's happening, as a matter of fact, getting ready to kick off on May 14th. That's right, at Lake Anita. For those of you who are interested in running, it's a 5K. They already told me if you can't make 5K, you can make 2K. If you can't make 2K, 1K. If you can't make 1K, you can just start and take a seat. And they're going to declare you finished. So it's happening. It's the first event, and then they're moving on May 15th to Jacob Chapel, where they're going to have what they have declared as old time gospel like it used to be way back when. And I don't have a problem with where we are now with gospel, but listen, back in the days, Doc D, back in the days, man, you're talking about some good gospel singing there. So they're going to bring that back into the forefront where they used to sing those old familiar hymns. And, this new millennium, they wouldn't know nothing about that. Sometimes I kind of forget about it, but it's going to be happening May 15th, Jacob Chapel, 3 p.m. It's a host of events that are happening for the Soul of Southside. And as we bring our Wake Up Minute to a close, the conversation is still on the rise about gun violence. Isn't it something, Alex Dixon, that a woman can be sitting in her house and a bullet comes through and hits her in her hand. She's inside the house, minding her own business, and the bullets. So gun violence conversation keeps on happening in and around our city. And I'm just a firm believer that we just can't keep talking about what we already know the solution to the problem is. And I think therapist, Dr. Courtney, is going to tell us some of that might have something to do with some mental health issues.
Sure.
They just ain't picking up guns to be picking them up. Something's got to be going on. So listen, we got a lot to do, and we're going to get it done. But I'm excited. I want you all 15,000 of you put your hands together, and let's thank all of you for what we're about to experience now. And it's about the fact that I have two amazing guests in the studio with us. One is law enforcement, one therapist. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and just give you a little bit about what they do, who they are, and then we're going to dive into the conversation. Let's start with our therapist.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Pastor Greg James. Is it Pastor or Reverend?
However you want to call it. Just on Wake Up Wednesday, we just say Greg James.
Okay, so Greg James, well, thank you for inviting me. It is an honor to be here today. My name is Dr. Courtney Beatty. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Florida and also in the state of Georgia. I am the owner of Onward and Upward Psychotherapy and Consulting Services, which currently we're providing only virtual online therapy. Another word for that is telehealth, which has become even more popular, salient since the pandemic. So the nice thing about that is it increases accessibility. It increases my reach to who I can serve. And so if you are not in the Tallahassee area, but you are a Florida resident and you are a Georgia resident, then we can help you.
Wow.
Yes. So that's the beauty of if there were any blessings that possibly came out of the pandemic is that it has created more mental health care accessibility for sure. I will say that as a licensed marriage and family therapist, a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm not married. Oh, well, I don't have a family, or, et cetera. And so I want to kind of just demystify who I serve and the services that I provide. So I provide mental health care services, meaning therapy sessions to individuals, to families, and also to couples as well. You do not have to be married in order to do couples counseling, couples therapy. If you are interested in troubleshooting an issue, if you're interested in doing premarital counseling, I provide services in that sense. If you are an individual who is interested in getting back into the dating world, if you have recently experienced divorce, anything related to relationships and is causing you some hardship, I can help you with that.
Wow. Well, listen, I tell you, there are a lot of people who are listening to the broadcast just say, wow, she just rang my bell when she said she can help me get back into the dating world.
Yeah.
Well, listen, and I wanted to start off with you, Dr. Courtney, because I think that it's so important as we get ready to dive into what I'm about to dive into, that you be a part of this conversation, because as we look at our world, there are so many people who feel like when it comes to a therapist, when it comes to talking to someone, it's taboo.
Sure.
And here it is. We are celebrating Mother's Day, which is right around the corner. And this year at Life Church International, we have made the declaration that we're going to celebrate and honor single mothers who are in law enforcement. And I just happen to have this amazing single mother in front of us. Why don't you tell the listening audience who you are? And let's begin this conversation.
Sure. Again, glad to be back on your show. It's been a little while.
It's been a little while.
My name is Rachel Keller. I am currently a sergeant at the Leon County Sheriff's Office. I am coming up on 16 years at the agency. I am currently supervising a squad of amazing deputy sheriffs that patrol the south side of Leon County. And they are fantastic. They are some of the most hardworking, empathetic, compassionate individuals I've ever met. And it makes me proud. I hate saying boss, but I guess I technically am. So it makes me proud every day I go to work. With that being said, over the last several years, I've done all sorts of things at the sheriff's office. I've trained new deputies. I've worked in investigations. I've gotten to ride a motorcycle for 2 years. My favorite position was when I was in school resource, which is where I met you. And I was the school resource officer at Second Chance and Success for almost 5 years. And I guess the obvious reason is that I'm also a mother. I have a 12-year-old daughter who is my motivation for everything I do. So,
wow. Well, listen, Rachel, you're here, Sergeant Rachel, and you're here, Dr. Courtney. And before I dive into this conversation, how important is it that you are here and our therapist is here? How important is that?
I think that mothers, not just single mothers, but mothers as a whole, feel this need to be everything to everyone, right? So even within their household, their mom, their counselor, their chauffeur, their coach, their nurse, their, taking care of household responsibilities and homework and all these things. And then you throw in an outside job, in this case, law enforcement, which has its own set of stressors. And you've got a person that's trying to juggle both arenas and not let either suffer. And so that's tough on anyone. And then you throw in the fact that they're doing it by themselves and it makes it even harder. And so I think when a person is in that position, there is no shame on going to someone like Dr. Courtney and sitting down and saying, I just need to unload. I just need someplace to discuss everything that's happened in the last however long, and I need someone to tell me, am I looking at this right? An outside perspective. So I think it's important. I think the two go hand in hand. You can't succeed at either if you're not willing to accept that you might need a little bit of help with it.
Wow. And for those of you who are listening to the broadcast, I felt that this was a chemistry made to give your life a real life change, because single mothers in law enforcement has a tremendous weight with it. And being able to know that at the end of the day, when everything that I've gone through, I can look forward to a appointment just to talk it out with a therapist is well worth it. What are some of the benefits you feel like can happen to a person's life when they sit down with you?
Sure. Going to therapy can certainly create a space where you walk away with additional clarity or clarity in general. If you never had any about a particular situation, it can help you to determine what's the best next step for you. If you're struggling with a particular relationship or a life transition, so to speak, A lot of my clients walk away feeling empowered, excited. They have reclaimed their sense of enthusiasm and hope that was lost as they're kind of just going through the human experience. And so you also learn, I'm a very practical person. Anybody that works with me or knows me in my personal life knows that I like to give you some tools that you can use when you're away from me, not just getting the therapeutic outcomes or benefits when you're in session with me, but also once you walk away from me. Wow. And what you can do in between.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I gotta come to you, Rachel, because Dr. Courtney said something that I think is so important for our listeners. Mm-hmm. Giving you the outcomes that you need. Single mother, you said well over 16 years now in law enforcement. And we have been doing a lot of research here lately since we brought up the celebration of this. Being that I know the job is stressful, mm-hmm. I know that you find yourself missing some of your daughter's major events. Mm-hmm. Yep. The level of weight that you carry, but yet you still have to smile. That's why we got the acronym SMILE, Sworn Single Mothers in Law Enforcement. Right. You still have to smile. Mm-hmm. And prior to coming on, you said you have an appointment.
Mm-hmm. I go to therapy every other Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And it's not there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, actually life right now is pretty good. As stressful as it is, life's pretty darn good. I don't have any major upsetting event that made me want to go, but it was an opportunity to unload because mm-hmm. when I'm at work, that's time to do work. Mm-hmm. And when I come home, that's time to be mom. And there's that very quick transition of it doesn't matter what happened during that shift. Mm-hmm. When I walk in that door, my daughter wants her mom. Mm-hmm. She wants the mom that sits down and does homework with her and cooks dinner and talks about her day and shows up at her basketball games. And it's a juggling act. So that's my time to myself, other than the gym. That is my time to myself to unload.
And this is so important because there's so many people who are listening to the broadcast who are mothers who are in various professions, and they're single, mm-hmm. and they are feeling the weight of it all. Mm-hmm. And the question that I pose comes from Dr. Courtney. You saying it's the time for people to walk away with a different outcome. Mm-hmm. That time that you unload, Sergeant Rachel, is the outcome different?
That's part of it. Mm-hmm. I think it's a multifaceted mm-hmm. answer. I think that's part of it. The other part of it is I am very blessed to have a supervisor above me that believe family is important. Mm-hmm. And so there have been times where I said, hey, can I get off early today? My daughter has a track meet. Hey, my daughter, has a really big event. And sometimes it can't. Sometimes there's times where I'm scrambling going, I got wrapped up in something at work. I need someone to go get my kid from school. Wow. I have been standing on scenes on the phone going, do me a favor, please get to the school and pick up my child because I don't know when I'm getting off tonight. But more often than not, like I said, I'm very blessed to work for a chain of command that says, if we are able, your daughter is important. Your child is important. Your family is important. And so they do the best of their ability, give me some balance. Mm-hmm. To be able to be there so she's not looking up in the stands at her basketball game and not seeing her mom.
And Dr. Courtney, I want to ask you this because I know that, when we look at single mothers in law enforcement, you can Google, but there's not a whole lot out there.
That's right.
There's not a whole lot out there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when you first heard the thought mm-hmm. that I was having this conversation, what really went through your mind?
Well, I said, can I contribute to this conversation? Can I add value to this conversation? And I want to do so in such a way that I don't blanket mental health care onto women in law enforcement who are also single mothers. As you kind of add an additional descriptor on there, it kind of, as I was telling Sergeant, that it kind of narrows down the funnel. It specializes the nuances of their mental health, their experiences, their stressors, etc. So being the studious person that I am, even though I'm out of school now, thank God, I'm still very much so an avid learner on my own free time. And so I did take some time to just search, single mothers in law enforcement, to read about their experiences. I have worked with veterans and also individuals in law enforcement before. However, again, single mothers in law enforcement is a very specialized population. So I didn't want to misstep in whatever I was offering to this conversation. But what I did learn is that it's not just what I expected, kind of the PTSD symptoms, being exposed to traumatic events, being exposed to having possibly your safety threatened every day that you leave your child and leave home. It's a different weight, you know, when you walk out of the door knowing that somebody else is expecting you to come back home. You know, we want to live for ourselves, but it's much different when you have children. And so I also learned about kind of the pressures of being in kind of a boys club type of industry.
Wow.
And the women that blogged about this kind of talked about, you know, that everybody's watching me, you know, especially when you're in a leadership position. So, you know, you take the first punch, you go down the scary attic first and all those kind of things. No matter what's happening for you on the inside, you have to show up in that space. And so it gave me additional detail about the stressors beyond just the blanketed expectation of being in a high demand, possibly safety concerning career path.
And with all of that, Sergeant Rachel, with all of that Dr. Courtney has just said, it really adds so much more to just the fact that you're in law enforcement. And I like the way you said it, the so-called boys club. You're there. And now look, you are a supervisor. And I'm sure most of your team,
all but one,
is a man.
Yeah.
So being single, being a mother, and I love what you said when you said someone is your 12-year-old daughter is looking for you to come home.
The older she's gotten, the more aware she's gotten.
Sure.
You know, when she was born, I was already doing this job. She's never known anything different. You know, the older she's gotten and the more aware and hearing people talk and you know, I'm very good about, we don't watch certain things in the house because I don't want her subjected to it.
Sure.
But you can't shelter them forever. They have friends, they have school, they have, you know, whatever. And so we have had to have some very tough conversations of, you know, what if something happens to you? Where do I go?
Wow.
You know, why do they want to hurt you? You know, I made the mistake the other day. I say the other day, it was probably a few months ago. I had gone on a relatively rough call at work with my squad, and it made me think of my daughter. So I randomly sent her, "I love you," in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
She walked out of class, told her teacher that she thought something was wrong and she needed to call her mom. And I was like, you know, there was nothing wrong, baby. I said, I wanted to say I love you. And she's like, but it was in the middle of the day and there was for no reason. And I thought something was wrong. And so it's not just the stressors to me, it's the stressors to my 12-year-old of the, you know, I told her when she was old enough to remember that I will do everything in my power to always come home to her. I'm not going to tell her I'm always going to come home because I can't make that promise. And I'm going to be damned if I break a promise to my child.
Good. Yeah.
So I will do everything in my power to come home to you. And she knows that. And we talk about it. But she asks me about once a month when I'm retiring.
So, you know, for certainly, I want to really applaud our ministry for embracing the fact that this Sunday we're going to be honoring and celebrating single mothers in law enforcement. And we've taken the word smile and using that as an acronym because you have to smile no matter how stressful it is, no matter what you see throughout the course of your shift, you still have to maintain that. And I think, Dr. Courtney, when you did research, as you and I both know, that I gathered some things that I did not know. And I think that once we begin to understand the weight of those individuals who serve our community, whether it's in law enforcement, whether it's in education, whether it's in public health, whatever it is, when we understand the weight of that, we have a different perspective.
Absolutely.
And with your work as a therapist, with people dumping on you, what do you do? I mean, because I'm listening to Sergeant Rachel, and she says, when I go, I just got to say, hey, listen,
here's everything.
Here's everything.
Yeah. So that's a great question. I have And I love all of my clients and all the clients I've ever served, but most clients are so full that they can't say, hey, how are you? So I have some clients who actually do care how their therapist is going. So you all are rock stars to me. But I will say that the same practices, the same psychoeducation that I encourage my clients to follow, the same clinical suggestions I encourage them to follow, I follow those things.
Wow.
I make it a practice that I'm intentional to, as best of my ability, practice what I teach. And so not only is it making me accountable to my own health so that I can show up as my best self and serve my clients, but also to give them a living example that when you apply good information, that good outcomes can come out of this. I'm not just telling you something because there's a scientific theory experiment behind it. I'm telling you because I live it. I'm telling you because I have peace. I'm telling you because I balance a lot, and I'm able to also balance a lot of other people's stuff as well. And it almost seems seamless on the outside to other people. So yes, I apply the psychoeducation, the coping skills, the self-care suggestions that I give. And a lot of times that includes exercise. It includes staying hydrated, eating live food, so that if you're pouring a lot of life out to people, you need to fill yourself back up with life. Sometimes that's music.
So wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta sit up, and Reverend Holmes just texted me, so I know he's sitting up. So you said if you're pouring out for people, you gotta eat live food. So I gotta cut out all the dead chicken I'm eating.
Well, that's why you're tired, because if you're eating foods that are dead, how can they give you life if it's dead when it goes in?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another conversation. Yeah. So here it is. Here it is. So thank you for sharing that. That in the midst of having, people bringing their dumping sessions to you, you have a way that you have to cope. So I want to tie something in that I feel like is so important after hearing that. And Sergeant, as a single mom, and we celebrate all the single moms that are in law enforcement, all of the single moms that are in corrections, but here it is during a difficult time in our history, pandemic. Difficult time.
Interesting time.
Life-changing time.
Sure.
You're still called on. All of the single mothers are still called upon to leave their children in the house and head to the streets, not knowing what you're going to face or what you're going to have to deal with. But once you put that belt on and put those boots on, the mindset has to shift.
Oh, yes.
How difficult has that been over the last 2.5 years?
I've gotten scarily good at compartmentalizing. So when the pandemic started, I was in investigations at the time. And so we were all sent home as well. So we were sent home to isolate, and we worked our cases from the house. So it actually kind of worked out because my daughter, there was no school, right? Everything was virtual. So she would sit at one end of the dining room table. I'd sit at the other end of the dining room table. I'd have my work computer. She'd have her school computer. She'd do her schoolwork. I would do my casework. I was very grateful that schools reopened about the time I got promoted and went back to patrol, and it just kind of happened to work out well. But times have changed. Times have changed in the schools. The teachers are stressed out. Understandably, they're trying to do everything for everyone. And law enforcement is busy as ever. And the kids are stressed out too. I think we forget sometimes that they're entitled to their emotions. We tell them to calm down, or we tell them these things, and they're just having emotions that we have. They're just not maybe quite as good at expressing them as we are. So it's been an adjustment. It's been an adjustment to recognize that her emotions are valid. She started middle school. She's finishing up 6th grade now, but she started middle school in the middle of a pandemic, which is rough and normal times, much less a pandemic. And so it's a matter of sitting down and sometimes stopping and taking a deep breath and slowing yourself down and realizing that everyone is just doing the best they can.
So let me ask you this, because I know that there are a lot of women in law enforcement.
There's becoming to be more.
There's becoming to be more. So when you started, how what would you say
probably had a handful. I could count them on two hands and have fingers left over.
Really?
On the law enforcement side, now I don't know the correction numbers,
Right.
but the law enforcement side, we had enough that I could count on two hands.
Single mothers, are you all finding time to share your experiences, or is life so busy once you hit the workplace, it's hey and everybody's off to their detail?
I think that there's an understanding between us. I think that there's, that head nod as you pass in a hallway, maybe, and if there's something that's really needed. But I think we've all figured out how to, I don't want to say survive, because it's more than that. We're not just surviving, we're thriving. But like for me, my family's 450 miles away. I have no family in Tallahassee. So my family has become work. Like my work family is my family. And so when I need help with my child, it's usually the wife of a deputy or,
Wow.
And so my family is made up of my friends. And so you figure out it becomes a different type of thing, but it works. My daughter's aunts and uncles are people from the sheriff's office.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So
How important is I tell you what, let me pause for just one break, and then I'm going to come back. Certainly, I want to give a big shout out to Deputy Chief Maurice Holmes, who's tuned in to the broadcast, and he's tuned in. I'm sure he's at his desk watching and listening in. Certainly want to thank God for our Reverend Holmes and some of the other pastors who just sent me messages saying how impactful the show has been. Hey, but let's pause just for 30 minutes. I got to pay some bills right quick, and we'll be right back.
He was a reverend. Maurice Holmes. I love me some Maurice Holmes.
Single mothers in law enforcement. Happy Mother's Day to you. I want to give a
I
shout
recognize
out
that
to
voice.
Greg James for making law enforcement single mothers a special day at his church. Thank you and God bless you.
I'm Pastor Greg James, and I want to invite you to join us May 8th. That's right, it's Mother's Day, and we're honoring single mothers in law enforcement. Our special guest speaker is City Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox. You want to make plans to join us 9:50 a.m. Life Church International, 4409 Blanchtown Highway. Happy Mother's Day. I'm looking to see you as we honor those who smile, single mothers in law enforcement. That's right, it's happening. Go ahead on tap. James, I want to invite you to join us May 8th. That's right. It's happening May 8th at Life Church International, 4409 Blanchtown Highway. That's right. We're going to be honoring all mothers, but our special tribute is going to single mothers in law enforcement. And certainly, as you're listening to the conversation here with Dr. Courtney and Sergeant Rachel, you can understand now more than ever before why we need to honor these young ladies for the service that they give. It's happening May 8th. I'm looking to see you. Our guest speaker for that Mother's Day celebration is none other than our illustrious leader, Sister Diane Williams-Cox. She's going to be very inspiring and encouraging on Mother's Day at Life Church International. Well, let's dive back into this conversation because I got some people who are asking questions and I want to try to get them answered. Let's look at something that I feel like is so important, Dr. Courtney, and you may help me with this, and looking at single mothers and looking at the hats that they have to wear to just, I don't want to say survive, to thrive. The hats they have to wear just to thrive. When it comes to your role as a therapist, and I'm sure that there are many people who sit down and talk to you, wear many hats. Sure. How do you keep them able to see each role is valuable to each other? Being in law enforcement is just as valuable as being a mother. Sure. Because it's a family of people that you have to attend to. How
So having conversations about how can I have better balance in all the roles and hats or positions that I hold is I just start with normalizing that it's really hard.
Really?
Yes, you have to normalize it. You have to let people know that you're not doing any worse than most people. Especially if you're doing it all by yourself. So you're not an island in that struggle. You're not an island in feeling like, well, I need to be doing more. I could do this better. because as people, we have a tendency to be our biggest critic. We have a tendency to have what I would say unrealistic expectations on ourselves. And a lot of times those expectations come from societal messages, societal norms. Sometimes it maybe comes from, harshness and expectations from family and friends who don't really know what it's like to walk in your shoes. And so I have a conversation about normalizing that is difficult. It is possible for it to be more manageable. So we talk about more so of making it manageable rather than making it easy. And that's how I kind of launch into those type of discussions.
Wow. Would you look at your life and say you have?
It's a daily balance.
Yes. Some days are better than others. Some days I'm really good at juggling. And some days I feel like I have dropped every single ball that I was trying to juggle.
Sure.
It just depends on the day. I will say, as time has gone on, I've gotten better. The older she's gotten, it's become a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to tell a 12-year-old what's going on versus a 2-year-old. But no, it's never, I don't have it perfected. I don't have it perfected at all. I mean, some days I've had to accept, and I've got a little bit of perfectionism thrown into my personality.
Sure.
And so I've had to realize it's okay if the dishes sit in the sink because you've worked 80 hours this week and juggled your child on top of that. Or it's okay that, you skipped the gym today because you just wanted to go to bed at 6:50. It's okay. It's okay because you don't have to be Superwoman all the time.
Correct.
You just don't. I think she hit the nail on the head with it's okay. Let's normalize it. It's okay.
Wow. Believe it or not, I'm as strong as I am. I'm almost with tears in my eyes to sit here and hear you. To see you in a uniform is one thing. To see you as a mother is another thing. But to hear you share the experience of living in both worlds as a mother and as a law enforcement officer, it's heart-wrenching because I think that when we really understand the sacrifice that people are making to serve, I think it should give us a better appreciation for them and a level of respect that they deserve.
I think the biggest thing that gets ignored is the sacrifice the kids end up making, truthfully. There have been countless conversations, and I'm very blessed to have a daughter who's very, very talkative and very open with me. And there's been conversations of, that's great that you're sergeant to this person and you're deputy to this person, but you're my mama.
Wow.
And she, so there's been those conversations of, that's great, but your job as my mom is your most important. Absolutely it is. There's been times, and she's like a typical 12-year-old. She expects you to pick up on the first ring. In all fairness, I do it to my mother now when I'm 36. Like, she don't answer, and I keep hitting redial. So I get it. But so she'll start calling, and it's something silly. Hey, can I borrow your tweezers? But I'm in the middle of something at work. And if I don't answer, then her brain goes to worst case scenario. So then I'm answering going, hold on 1 second. Don't want to have to call you back. And, it's that constant thing. And I don't think we recognize that it's not just the sacrifice of the moms. It's also a sacrifice of the child's too.
Wow. Let me ask you this. Let me give a correction. I thought Deputy Chief was probably sitting at his desk, but he just sent me a message to let me know that he's home battling COVID.
Oh, no.
So COVID is still real.
Yes, it is.
So Deputy Chief, we are praying for you and just, do all the necessary things that you have to do, because you just let us know that we still have to practice safety and sanctity as we move throughout. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Courtney, because you just said something that was so important, Sergeant Rachel. Your daughter says, I'm glad that you made sergeant. And I'm glad that, you got a team that you supervise. But your mom, how devastating could that be on a child who does not understand?
Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult, especially if it's a new position or career. So it's always this learning curve, right? When something new is introduced into the life. She said that she's been in this field, in this industry for 16 years. Her daughter is 12. That's all she's ever known. And so she's had this kind of graduation into being socialized, and that socialized is, clinical jargon for you have been taught, whether directly or indirectly through observation, of what it's like to be embedded in this law enforcement culture. Because whether she is actually serving and protecting directly, she is still very much so a part of the law enforcement culture. And so it's that process of socializing the child, educating them, preparing them, letting them know what's normal, what you can expect from me, et cetera, kind of helps to make the reality of it all less daunting. Not to say that it's not going to be daunting, but it makes it more manageable. It makes it more livable. And so that can be very helpful. Children who kind of are left in the dark because we like to protect our children from them worrying or being stressed about us or being stressed about safety. Wow. But in the event that the worst happens, those are the children who struggle the most. They did not have any type of anticipatory time to grapple with the possibility that the worst of the worst can happen to my parent, to my family, is very real for me. And so a lot of it is struggling with the grief process of the loss, but also grappling with the potential that this was something that could have happened to me. So it kind of compounds the grieving process. And again, I believe as a therapist, anybody can heal through and work through anything, but it just makes it even more difficult.
Wow. I want to say to those of you who are listening to the broadcast, certainly we definitely know how to call Sergeant Rachel, because we know the number to the sheriff department. But I know that though there are some of you who are listening to the broadcast, you're really benefiting from what you're hearing as we talk about single mothers in law enforcement. And as you hear Dr. Courtney, why don't you tell people who are listening, and we have well over 10,000 people who listen to our broadcast. I mean, I'm at a point to say maybe I need to schedule an appointment.
Every 2 weeks.
But let's get our audience information as to how they can contact you.
Yes.
And maybe I'll open up the phone lines for a question or two. I know if I open it up, it's going to light up like a Christmas tree. But how can they contact you?
Sure. Well, there's many different ways to get in contact with me. And please hear this from a tone of humility. But if you type my name into the Google search bar, you will get a wealth of information and ways to connect with me. So I am listed as a verified therapist on psychologytoday.com. That is a national therapist directory. And so essentially you just type in what your zip code is or your state, because again, with the increase of mental health being online now, you don't necessarily have to have a therapist in your city. And so type in your local area, make sure you're within your state. You can type in my name, and then it'll populate my profile page, giving you all the background about my training, education, about services, etc. You also can reach me at the business line, 850-296-8799.
Okay, say that once again real slow. Let me get someone from our Facebook audience to put that. Ms. Keller, would you put that in the thread? It's 850 296
8799.
8799. That's 850-296-8799.
That's right. My preferred mode of communication, though, I will say, because I'm usually very busy in and out of sessions, and so I prefer that you email me. So you can email me at Beatty, as in my last name. That's B as in boy, A as in apple, I as in igloo, T as in Tom, and Y as in yellow. And it's MFT as in marriage family therapy at gmail.com. So that's Beatty MFT at gmail.com, and I will be happy to respond to you.
Wow. Well, listen, certainly this has been, and someone just said, Sergeant Rachel, you got the it factor. The it factor. I think that's what they said. Yeah, they said it factor. I don't know what the it factor is.
I don't know that it's been identified yet, but I'll take it.
Okay.
It's a compliment.
It's a compliment. Definitely a compliment.
Yes.
You are it. So certainly, this is amazing, and there's so many people who are being blessed by this conversation, especially for those of you who are tuning into our social media audience. If you're on Facebook, Instagram, or you're watching us on YouTube, if this is really blessing you, I just need you to go ahead on and put some hearts on that thread. And for those of you who are listening to the broadcast, oh God, I just want to take one caller because I really don't have a whole lot of time. I want to really continue this conversation, but let me make sure this is right. It's amft@gmail.com.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Carolyn, for putting that in the thread, and look forward to that. Let me pause once again. I just pay the bill one more time. Let me pay the bill one more time, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna wrap up with our next 15 minutes of the broadcast.
Did you know that it was that it's not visible to the public? The show.
It's not?
It's only friends only. Everybody's like, I can't see it.
You kidding me?
Yeah.
Hold on. Oh, I hate that. Well, it's visible now.
Yeah.
Why we didn't say something?
Oh well, I really didn't have a chance to say anything. I thought the commercial break was gonna be longer.
Well, we're back and we are talking with Sergeant Rachel and Dr. Courtney. We're talking with it's our celebration coming up May 8th as we honor mothers, and this year we're especially giving a great homage and celebration to single mothers in law enforcement. And Sergeant Rachel is here as a single mother, sharing how her role is when it comes to wearing the two hats, operating in the two worlds, separating the two yet, but having them knitted in our heart to serve as a mother and to serve our community as a law enforcement officer, protecting, serving, and doing everything she possibly can to ensure the safety and the protection of the citizens of this great county. And certainly today, my eyes of understanding have been open to really take a deeper dive and a deeper look at the work that takes place from the mother who has to put on her boots and wrap the belt around her waist and say goodbye to her daughter as she moves into the space of serving our community. One that has really touched my heart in such a way that the respect level has really increased when it comes to single mothers doing this kind of work. And what would you say to those mothers, just mothers who are listening to this broadcast that are not in law enforcement, just mothers? What would you say to them today?
You had to put me on the spot for that one. Huh? That you're doing a good job. Mm-hmm. I think that as a mother, it is very easy just to accept that everything you do is just expected, right? Everything you do is just what we do. And you go through the everyday of taking care of your child or your children and the house and the responsibilities and your job and whatever your job may be. And I don't know that we tell each other good job very often. I don't think, I mean, even just a simple like, hey, you made it through the day and you juggled everything you had to juggle, good job. And so I think just good job. I don't, I'm blessed that I've got a good group of people around me that notice when life is hectic and says, hey, you're doing a really good job with what you got going on. Wow. And so I think that's what I just want to say. No matter what your job is, no matter how many kids you've got, no matter what your family life looks like, no matter what it is, you're doing a good job.
Wow. Dr. Courtney, what would you say to mothers who are listening to?
Sure. I would say, to recognize that you're always so busy focused on taking care of other people be just that diligent about taking care of yourself. I know it's hard to do that, but you'll be amazing of giving yourself 10 minutes, 15 minutes, giving that back to you rather than pouring it into other spaces. What it can do for you, it can reinvigorate you, it can empower you, it can replace energy that you've lost along the way. And so making sure that self-care happens, don't make excuses. Again, 5 minutes in the simplest ways. It doesn't mean that you need a full day, half a day, a vacation and all of that, because what I call micro habits, they accumulate and benefit, so the smallest habits of self-care, whether it's just sitting in the car, listening to meditation for 3 minutes before you go inside and kind of put that, position, that hat back on. It can do make a world of a difference for your mental health for sure. So make sure that you're loving on yourself as well, the same way that you love on all the other people that you're connected to and you're responsible for.
Wow. One of the things that I want to say today is that certainly when we take a look at life, and when we take a look at what life has presented us with, it's not easy as a law enforcement person, whether you're single, whether you have a family, you're married, because you're faced with so much on a day-to-day basis. 16 years. What drove this career?
A calling. It was not the original plan. I moved up here to go to college. The original plan was law school, and I did a ride-along. And it wasn't even that there was anything super exciting that night. It wasn't like there was anything out of the ordinary. But for whatever reason, I always tell people it was like being hit over the head with a 2x4. It was like, oh, wait a minute, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I called home that next day and said, hey, so at law school, I'm not going. I want to go to the law enforcement academy. And there was a lot of fighting, for my parents. I'm the only law enforcement officer in my family. And, mom's a nurse, dad's a teacher, but it's not really the plan. And within a year, I had been to the academy and was hired at the sheriff's office. So, at 20 years old, I thought I had it all figured out. I look at life and the world a little bit differently at 36, but I can't imagine doing anything else.
A ride along changed your whole life.
At 20. Well, I guess I was 19 when I went to the academy, and then I turned 20 while I was in the academy.
Dr. Courtney? Therapist.
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah, I know.
How?
Not the childhood dream, that's for sure. I started with psychology. I went to Florida State for my bachelor's in psychology. I had always been just naturally curious about understanding human psyche, behavior, emotions. And then I actually took a class on marriage and family. It was taught by a licensed marriage and family therapist who also had a PhD. So I was like, that's a thing. I love that class so much that I would talk about it when I was outside of class, and people who were like, what, why are you talking about this? You're not in class in that space anymore. I was very passionate about the topics of helping improve quality of life through relationships. And so down the trajectory I went, and I went to the University of Kentucky for my master's in marriage and family therapy. I boomeranged back to Florida State for my PhD in human development and family sciences, just to kind of broaden my scope of research beyond the clinical space. So that has brought me here.
Well, for those of you who are listening to the broadcast, if you don't take away this when you hear these two voices, what you hear are voices who have found their calling. They have found not a job, but they have found a way to serve.
Sure.
And that way to serve is done with so much passion because they know they're in their purpose. If your life is going to change, and if you're ever going to make the kind of impacts that you need to make, this is a moment that you need to pause. And as Dr. Courtney would say, take some self-time, some me time. Look at your life, see where you want to be. Whether you're a single mom, feeling like life has thrown so much at you that you can't survive. You just heard from a single mom who is not only a mom to her daughter, but to the whole county. as she serves.
Sure.
Why? Because she's doing what she feels she's been called to do. You just heard from Dr. Courtney, who said, this was definitely not my child.
Nope, I was supposed to be a dentist, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a very big deviation. Yes.
Yeah, that truly is. I mean, you're pulling problems away from people. I don't know whether that's pulling teeth, but you're pulling problems.
Yeah.
And I know it's hurtful for them, but they're being healed in the process.
Yeah.
But certainly I want to thank you too for being with us today. And certainly I felt like this conversation is a marriage between the two professions. Excuse me. And I believe that for those of you who are listening, especially those of you in the faith community, Sergeant Rachel is a Christian, Dr. Courtney is a Christian, and Sergeant, you just know that. Sitting in the chair talking to the therapy is just as powerful.
Absolutely.
Because I feel that there's somebody saying, well, I don't need no therapist to talk to.
They work hand in hand. I feel like what was that story about the guy who was on a roof during the flood?
Yes.
And all these different things kept trying to come save him, and he's like, "No, God's got it, right?" And then all of a sudden he goes to heaven because he didn't make it, and God's like, "What were you doing? I gave you these things to help you, and you just." And I feel like that's therapy. Like I feel like therapy is just a tool that is being given to us to help us. It's not taking away from. It's not saying that prayer doesn't work, but they can work in conjunction.
Wow.
That's good. That's good.
What a way to wrap it up. I mean,
I couldn't have said it.
You could have said it no better.
Yeah, she summarized that very well.
You didn't pay her to do that.
I did not. I didn't train her either. She got it.
She got it.
Yeah, I think what I would say, and actually May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so this is very fitting to have this discussion. But to normalize that therapy is not just for individuals who have severe mental health disorders. It's not for individuals who are only in crises, but it's also for individuals who are high functioning. They just need a complementary tool to help them navigate different life spaces.
Define high functioning. We got about 30 seconds.
Okay.
I'm trying to see, do I fit in that category?
Yeah. You high functioning, you get up and go, you're fairly stable in that sense, but you have life ups and downs just like anybody else. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, I guess that's me. Well, listen, I want to thank both of you all for joining us today as we celebrate Women's Week and as we move through realizing that we're approaching Mother's Day. It's our celebration of single mothers who are in law enforcement, Life Church International. And I want to thank you so much, Sergeant Rachel, for all that you do and for all the women who are serving in law enforcement as single moms. Our hats are off to you. I don't even think roses will be adequate enough to give. So we're going to keep you in prayer. We're going to keep believing that God's going to keep protecting all of you as you go out your day-to-day work to serve our communities. And once again, Dr. Courtney, thank you so much. As you just stated, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Thank you for joining the conversation. And to all of our listeners, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Sunday as we celebrate mothers all over the nation. But our special emphasis is on single mothers in law enforcement. Hey, this has been Greg James Community Show. I want you to stay wide awake because Sunday morning I have the Stay Woke person speaking. That's City Commissioner Diane Williams Cox. So you want to make plans to join us. Until next week, be blessed and have a moment to yourself because it really works.
Yes.
I love the passion and sacrifice of these women. You're right. Wow. Okay, this was amazing. I enjoyed.
Yes, it was very nice.
It was nice meeting you too.
Yes, absolutely.
Every moment of it was amazing. It was amazing. Wow. I wish you would have told me it wasn't published.